There's so much that I want to say about this game that I don't even know where to begin. But first and foremost, I want to say that Crisis Core is a game that I really connected with back in the day. I'm not sure why, but even now playing through it, I always get apprehensive about the ending. You see, Zack is just one of those characters that's so well written and so easy to get attached to, as is Angeal, Genesis, and Sephiroth, before he goes batshit crazy. Mix that in with a bangin'-ass soundtrack and you have a masterpiece on your hands. Really, playing Crisis Core Reunion, I was reminded how ahead of its time this game was back on the PSP. The story, the combat, the cutscenes, and especially the voice acting. But with the remake, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Without further ado, let's get right into the problem with Crisis Core Reunion. Men cry not for themselves, but for their comrades. If that doesn't sum up the story of this game in a nutshell, then I don't know what does. There's something super intriguing about the world of Midgar before Final Fantasy VII. Seeing Shinra from the inside instead of outside really sheds some light on what kind of company it is beneath the surface, as things slowly start to fall to pieces and Shinra shows its true colors the more you progress throughout the story. And seeing it all through the eyes of Zack Fair, one of my favorite characters in the Final Fantasy universe, is just the cherry on top of it all. Save for his terrible English voice actor in Reunion.
So I can cut loose, right?
Within reason.
It's showtime!
Ah, fuck me, bro. His voice is...
You serious? I was just getting warmed up.
Zack.
Rick Gomez!
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but Caleb Pierce was just not the right role for Zack. Straight up, I knew it in Remake, and it's even more apparent here in Reunion. Why they had the bright idea to replace Rick Gomez is beyond me, as he did such a phenomenal job in the original, and the same really applies to all of the new castings for this game.
Training's over.
Why? You serious? I was just getting warmed up.
But none are as bad as Zack's, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it, because he's the main lead in this game. That's the #1 character you need to get right. Screw everybody else. In fact, the story doesn't really work at all without Zack, because if he's not likable and you're not cheering for him, then the whole thing falls apart. His delivery is just atrocious, but don't let me be the one to tell you. Take it from the man himself.
What the hell did you do, Angeal? Is that your idea of honor? What are you talking about? What's going on here? Angeal! Angeal!
Now let's listen to the original and just hear how much better that sounds.
What the hell did you do, Angeal? Is that your idea of honor? What are you talking about? What's going on here? Angeal! Angeal!
Literally, it's a night and day difference. It's crazy how much they messed up Zack's voice here. I'm sorry. Really, even the rest of the cast, listening back, I was really impressed with the voices. On every single character, they just nailed it. And it's so clear to me that the new cast is just trying to kind of copy how the old voices sounded, but it's just not the same. And I don't know. Anyways, this problem is mitigated by the fact that you can just switch to Japanese voices, but it's such a shame when I think the original English voice actors actually outdid the Japanese voice actors. And I'd much prefer having an original voice cast option rather than have to make the switch to Japanese, but it is what it is. Part of me feels like the voices were changed to make the voices as consistent as possible within the remake universe, but at the same time, this game adds absolutely nothing to that storyline. It's just Crisis Core with better graphics, a somewhat revamped combat system, some additional voice lines, and that's it. I'm glad that they actually did a remaster correctly here for once, looking at you FF7 Remake, but I'm not entirely sure what Square Enix's goal is here. Why remaster Crisis Core with enhanced graphics and better combat, while also redoing it for Ever Crisis but in a shittier way? Why change the story of the original while leaving Crisis Core Reunion alone and remastering it the proper way? Were you not creating an alternate universe? I just don't get it. I know it seems like I'm complaining that they didn't change the story, but trust me, I'm glad they didn't. The only thing that really upsets me about this is knowing that the meaning and story behind Crisis Core's message is basically pointless with how Remake ended, and honestly, the ending didn't hit me as hard as it once did because of that fact. People die, things go wrong, that's life. What was truly beautiful about the original game, and why I think so many people like Zack as a character, was because of his ability to stay strong and be positive no matter how hopeless the situation had become. And when he dies, never getting to see Aerith again, even though he had resolved so strongly to make it back to her, it hits harder than most any video game deaths ever could. I just think that the message that Crisis Core tries to send, that being, no matter what happens, embrace your dreams, is such a beautiful message to have within a video game. And to trade that just so our characters can have their happy ending is just so silly to me. Life just doesn't work like that sometimes, and it sucks, but we persevere. We don't get to rewind time and do things differently in reality, and this new storyline is trying to do exactly that. And Cloud not getting to carry on Zack's legacy doesn't sit right with me. Even if he forgot him, even though he said he wouldn't, Jesus Christ, Cloud, you friggin' asshole. Whatever. Sorry to go on a tangent, but the ending of this game reminded me of why the storyline to this game is so important to me, and I'm sure many others, and to see it retconned to oblivion is a travesty that I had to get out somehow on paper. Hell, even the ending, to be continued in Final Fantasy VII, yeah, right. Yeah, if you just remade Final Fantasy VII properly, then maybe you could have put that title on there. Regardless, the story here is as good as it was in the original Crisis Core, but the new stuff just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Personally though, I love what they did with the combat. Being able to chain your attacks together in tandem with your materia is really satisfying to do, rather than having the attack command and the materia command separate from each other. Ugh. Like, there's just no way I could go back to the original's combat after having played Reunions. They even included a new battle stance that wasn't in the original when Zack gets the Buster Sword, similar to Cloud's offensive stance in Remake, and I dig it. There's all this materia you can obtain to power Zack up, and then testing out that new powerful badass materia you obtained in battle can get really addicting. In general, powering up Zack and maxing out his HP to 99,999 and costly punching people for 99,999 damage and preparing to face the super secret boss Minerva was the most fun I've had in a video game in a long time. In order to do so, you'll have to go on a variety of different missions, and because of the updated combat system, completing the missions on the side is a good bit of fun. While a lot of them can be a bit bland, having you run to a location just to fight some monsters and call that a mission completed, there's a few that have you refight bosses you fought during the story, or even yourself at one point, or 1,000 Shinra troops, but a lot of them play out the exact same way too. Part of me wishes these missions could have been updated and made a bit more interesting, but I understand at the end of the day, this is a PSP game they're remastering here, as much as it looks like a console release with these new graphics. There are also many quality of life improvements that I very much appreciate being included, like the ability to skip DMW limit breaks. Watching those play out over and over in the original was so incredibly tiresome. You can skip the scenes before the limit breaks as well, but they're nicer to watch than in the original, mainly because of the fact that they went through the extra trouble to voice these lines as well. And I'm glad they did, because it really adds to the experience. For instance, when Zack goes through his hair change, I was like, man, I wonder what Aerith thought when he changed his hair. And then boom, little did I know, there's a scene within the DMW for that, fully voiced for me to enjoy. It just adds more authenticity and background to the experience, and it's just cool to see those extra scenes fully voiced. Also, you now have the opportunity to stop an enemy from dealing a massive damage-dealing attack, as compared to the original, where they just straight up did it whether you liked it or not. There's a bit of time before the enemy can get the ability off, and you can either mitigate or completely stop the attack from coming out, depending on how much damage you do while they're charging up. It's a welcome feature that adds a bit more depth to the combat, since you need to decide whether to go all out to stop them from unleashing the ability, or heal up and barrier up to try and tank the attack instead. All in all, the problem with Crisis Core Reunion mainly lies with the fact that this story, in my opinion, is obsolete now according to Square Enix, in favor of a storyline where everyone gets their nice little neatly packaged happy ending, and nothing can ever go bad in life because the fairy godmother is gonna protect you forever and we gotta bring Kingdom Farts into the mix. That, and the voice acting. There are a few other nitpicks here and there that bothered me though, and I'm going to go ahead and list them out here so that people can be aware of these issues. I noticed the cutscenes that are separate from the game engine were literally pretty much just straight up ripped from the PSP version. No, they didn't really do anything to make it better, but apparently the scenes were upscaled by AI? This was the best they could do? I don't know, call me crazy, but it felt a little jarring to have the in-game engine be redone and then be whisked away to a CGI cutscene, when maybe they could have just had these cutscenes redone within the in-game engine? Back on the PSP, it made sense to have those CGI scenes just because, well, the PSP just wasn't powerful enough, but this is a console release and should reflect that. And to just copy-paste the scenes from the PSP version of the game is straight up lazy in my eyes. 2, when I say this is a one-to-one remake, I mean that literally. Everything is the exact same, from the dotted blue lines to mark instanced loading zones, to the way you can skip battles by hugging the shit out of corners. Like I said, in some ways it's a good thing, but in others, it's like, really? You couldn't have gotten rid of the instanced loading zones and made the world somewhat seamless? A little more work, to be sure, but for $50, almost the price of a new AAA release, I don't think it's asking too much. And 3, again, the voice acting just makes me want to cry like Yuffie. And that marks the end of this video. At the end of the day, I really enjoyed Reunion, and it was really nostalgic to be able to go back and play it once more. If you're a huge fan of the original like me, then this remaster I can thankfully say was done right for the most part. Because again, there are a few nitpicks I have here and there that I clearly mentioned within the video. For me personally, the price was worth $50 as I made sure to do everything the game has to offer, but for others, if you don't plan on doing that, I would recommend holding off, as a $50 price tag for a PSP re-release can be a bit steep. If you enjoyed the review, don't forget to like and subscribe, or I'ma come costly punch your ass.